In this video, I want to go over a couple vulnerabilities that only affects Linux users. So if you're a Mac or a Windows user, I'm not saying you don't have any vulnerabilities. This particular video is just focusing toward Linux users. And if you found the video on YouTube, I will provide a link below the video where it has some additional information on both of the vulnerabilities that I'm fixing to show you. Now, I've got the title of How to Fix the Polkit and Dirty Pipe Vulnerabilities. Now, there's been a couple Polkit vulnerabilities here recently, and if you click the link that I have on my website, this is the name. This is a Polkit vulnerability, and it tells you a little bit about the framework for managing administrative policy and privileges. But this particular Polkit vulnerability, this one is, it could be made to run programs as the administrator, which is a bad thing. You don't want someone being able to put something on your computer and run it at his or her will. So it shows you the update instructions that you can update your Polkit. Like if you're on Ubuntu 21.10, you download the update here. If you're on Ubuntu 20.04, which I am, you can download the Polkit here. And here's the older versions of Ubuntu that you can get the information from. And that's for that particular vulnerability. Now, here I've got a way that you can use what is called the Polkit-Hunter. It's a tool to look for vulnerabilities within your Polkit. And here is a little bit more background about the tool, and it's about that particular vulnerability with the Polkit, which is slightly different than the other one, but it can find a vulnerability within your Polkit. So I'm going to show you how you can run these commands in your terminal, and then I'll show you the next one, vulnerability. So let me open up my terminal. And mine's fixed, by the way. And let me tell you this part. If you're seeing this, don't panic, because there is a vulnerability, two or a couple vulnerabilities. If you're updating your system and updating it regularly, more than likely the update has already fixed your problem. But if you're like my uncle and update maybe every month or every 2 months, then that's where your system more likely will be vulnerable, because you're not getting the updates as needed. But I'll show you how you can test whether or not you have the vulnerability on your system, and if you do, how to fix it. You don't have to panic. You just simply copy and paste this into your terminal, and it downloaded its very small amount of programs, and it downloaded them very quickly. We're going to change our directory to this Polkit-Hunter that it created on your computer. So we change it to that. Now, before I go to this last step, I got the instructions here. You need to go and give allow executed permission so that it can actually scan and find it on your system. So let me go open up my file manager. And here is the program or the folder that it created, Polkit-Hunter. You double click on here, and the one that ends with finder.py, if you click on it and then right click and choose properties, then you go to permissions. By default, it's not checked here for execute, where it says allow executing files as a program. Check that and hit close. Then you can close this out. Now we can go to the next step, which is to run this. And see, we're going to run this, and we wanted to run it as an executable file. So when I put this in my terminal, press the enter return key, it's now started. It says your Polkit is not vulnerable. Keep being secure. If your Polkit was vulnerable, then you actually go to one of these sites that I mentioned below, which is like here. I have multiple sites, and there's the Polkit one. It shows you that this is for Ubuntu 20.04, the long-term support, but you can go to all versions of this package and find the version that matches your system. If you don't know how to install it, you can download the deb file or the apt install. Click that and it will install it on your system. I also provide other sites that you can click, and if you got a different version, you can scroll through here and look at all the older, and it gets down to some of the newer ones like that at the bottom, so you can locate the Polkit for your system. Now that is the Polkit vulnerability. There's also another vulnerability called the dirty pipe vulnerability, and I provide the link below here at the bottom. The dirty pipe privilege escalation vulnerability in Linux. If you click on that, it gives you a little bit more information about it. It says there's a privilege escalation vulnerability within the Linux kernel. This affects your Linux kernel version 5.8, later known as the dirty pipe. A local attacker could exploit this vulnerability and take control of the affected system. So like the other one, we don't want someone taking control of your system. And if you've been updating your computer, more than likely you're not affected. Now, I'm not going to read all what the exploit does, because they go on explaining, how it works. We're not as concerned about it as who's affected by it and how to fix it. It says who's impacted by the dirty pipe vulnerability. If you go on and read it, it lets you know that really the people affected by the kernel version range from kernel version 5.8 to 5.10.101. But they do say that it can affect anyone from 5.8 to 5.16.11. So here, if you're within that range, if you have 5.8, 5.10.1.0, I recommended you to make sure you're getting your updates, but then you can actually look, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out. You can actually look at your system tools, and if you don't have the system profile and benchmark or any of the type tools that looks through your system, you can look here. I do have the Linux kernel 5.16.3, and I don't have any problems, but I do have the most current version of Ubuntu 20.04.4, the long-term support. So if you've been getting the updates, more than likely you're in pretty good shape. But if you go to how to fix the dirty pipe vulnerability, and I do have this link, they show you how you can fix it, and they talk about if you have these kernels right here, then you might want to update to a newer kernel or a different kernel. If you don't know how to update your kernel, I provide a link below here that allows you to update your mainline kernel. You just open up this tool, and if you don't have it on the tool, I show you how to install it, and you can locate a kernel different than the ones that were on the website. Once you've picked it, clicked onto it, you click install, and it will do all the work for you. You don't have to panic. But like I said, if you're keeping your system up to date by going to System Administration and running the software updater, or updating your terminal, and so going sudo apt update to update your PPAs, and then sudo apt get upgrade, then more than likely, since they've already been aware of these vulnerabilities, it will patch your system so that your system is safe. So with Linux, it's a much safer system than your typical Windows system. Now, Windows can be safe as long as you're keeping it updated and you're keeping it scanned for viruses and malwares and other threats. Now, there's threats that can be on a Linux system, but there's so many people out there that they catch these, so that way that if you're updating your computer on a regular basis, you're staying secure. And if you don't update it, I show you how you can use little tools to find out if your system's affected so that you can fix your system from these vulnerabilities. We don't want anyone that's using Linux to be affected by any of these vulnerabilities. We don't want someone to come and install something on your system or take over control of your system because there's a vulnerability on that system. Hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and have a great day.